This question comes from Reddit user MVP12132. He's wondering, will NXT Brooklyn sell at the Barclays Center? PW Insider reports that WWE is sad to go with a rematch between new NXT champion Finn Balor and Kevin Owens, which raised a lot of questions as to why they booked this match. It doesn't make sense right now because Kevin Owens, he's been called up to the main roster. He's been performing on Monday Night Raw and Thursday Night SmackDown as well as the pay-per-views. It's not realistic for him to go back to NXT. So this match between Finn Balor and Kevin Owens, it's smoke and mirrors. Finn Balor's going over. Kevin Owens isn't going to win the NXT Championship and then get called back down again. Wrestling Observer reports that the WWE's reason for doing this was to rival local independent promotions that are running events that same night, which is the night before SummerSlam. It's been a long-standing tradition for the smaller independent companies to run their shows the night before a big show like SummerSlam or WrestleMania, and just try and take away some of that business the night before, because with the number of people that fly in from all parts of the world to watch those big events, they're also going to want to look at the independent scenes and what's going on the night before. That's when the indies jump onto it and try and just make as much money as possible off that group of people. So Ring of Honor is putting on a show that night as well, and they're expected to draw huge numbers as well, which is probably part of the reason why they decided to put a mega main event in there, as well as the fact that the Barclays Center is a very large venue, and it was very difficult to sell out unless you're a WWE product. The original plan was to call up Kevin Owens to the main roster permanently, and he would just be working SummerSlam. I would imagine he would still be in his program with John Cena. He'd be wrestling for the United States Championship. He would have no affiliation with NXT at this point. That was the original plan. And instead of Finn Balor versus Kevin Owens, it was going to be Finn Balor versus Samoa Joe. That feeling was that Samoa Joe versus Finn Balor could be saved for later in the year during the fall season, where there won't be a main event program there and they'll need to find one. So Balor versus Joe would be the fall program. Samoa Joe will also be appearing on the show. Like, even though he's not the NXT Championship match, he will still be on the show. But except for Finn Balor versus Kevin Owens, no other match has been announced for that night. Which begs the question, how reasonable is it to expect that the WWE's developmental brand will be able to sell out the largest venue they have ever had a show in? This is the largest venue. Normally, they're working in Full Sail Arena down in Florida, and they probably draw 300 to 400 people. Prior to this live special, they ran a house show at San Jose State University. This is Saturday night, the night before WrestleMania. It was house show only, and it wasn't a network exclusive. That drew 5,500, and it was probably just the novelty of the idea. They had never run an event on the West Coast before, so that was probably a big reason why they sold that many seats. But in order to sell the Barclays Center, they would probably have to draw at least 14,000 for it to be considered a sellout. But right now, the NXT roster, it's as thin as it's been the last year. In the past month, you've lost Hideo Itami to injury. He's going to be out for another 3 to 4 months, and you just feel bad for the guy because when Finn Balor won an NXT Championship in Japan, you just saw him sitting ringside, and he knew that was supposed to be his spot. They had it planned all along. He had gone to WrestleMania. He won the tournament to participate in the Battle Royal, the Andre the Giant Battle Royal at WrestleMania. And then they were just building him up to be the new NXT champion. He was going to win in his home country. But he just got hurt, so now he's going to be out for another 3 to 4 months. Bayley hurt herself, so she's not on the roster right now. Sami Zayn is out with a shoulder injury. He recently had surgery, so he'll be out till he projects late 2015, but I honestly expect early 2016, maybe at the Royal Rumble, a surprise return. You've also lost 3 of your top divas, Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte, which were literally the cream of the crop at the women's division of NXT. But this past Monday, they got called up in a big segment, so they're not going to be on the show anymore. One of the downfalls of NXT is it is a star-driven show. And if you take away that star power, the whole product falters. Now, this is different from the main roster because when you go to a WWE show, you're going for the WWE show. You're not going to watch specific wrestlers. This is different from the Attitude Era where you would go to watch Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Hulk Hogan. Those were the guys you would go to watch those shows. That's the same concept with NXT. You go to NXT because you want to watch guys like Sami Zayn. You want to watch Hideo Itami. You want to see Finn Balor and Kevin Owens, Samoa Joe. But if some of those guys are gone, all that's left is the homegrown developmental guys who, don't get me wrong, they're great. They're extremely talented and extremely entertaining, but they're not going to draw on ticket sales. Blake and Bud Murphy, the tag team champions, entertaining tag team. They're really evolving as a trio, as a duo, and they're probably going to get called up in the next year or two. Enzo Amaro, Colin Cassidy, they get great reactions as well. Emma, Tyler Breeze, but they're not going to be the ones selling out the house shows. They're not the ones drawing. It's the top 2 or 3 guys, and if those top 3 guys are hurt, they're not going to be able to sell at the Barclays Center. Now, there are guys that are expected to get called up to the NXT roster as the new cycle of stars leave NXT. But out of the new guys expected to debut, the only one that has international name recognition is Uha Nation. And Uha Nation is going to be a star in NXT. And as soon as he debuts, he's going to immediately be in the main event scene because that's how big of a name he is. He's one of those independent guys that everybody's heard of, and he's just legions ahead of all the developmental guys that are working as a homegrown talent. This guy has been working probably since the early 2000s. So he has just so much more experience than all the guys that debuted it in like 2012 and 2013. So right now I see the show being headlined by Finn Balor, Kevin Owens, and in the undercard featuring Samoa Joe, Uhaa Nation, Tyler Breeze, Baron Corbin, and Solomon Crowe. Can that card garner a sellout? I don't think it can. As great as the New York/New Jersey wrestling fans are, in order to sell out more than a university-style arena, you have to be able to draw on at least a small percentage of casual crowd. You're going to get the marks. You're going to get the New York fans that are like 4,000 or 5,000 people. That's guaranteed. But in order to garner 10,000 or more, you got to get that casual crowd. You got to get the families. You got to get the kids. And I would imagine a very small percentage of that crowd will be willing to go to this event. Don't be mistaken. It's still going to be a phenomenal event. And out of the 6 NXT specials, every single one of them has delivered, especially in the main events, which should be no different here because I'm confident that Finn Balor vs. Kevin Owens will be a match of the year contender. And you combine that with breaking the NXT attendance record, which is very attainable considering they only have to draw more than 5,500, and you have the makings of one of the most memorable events in NXT history. It's not going to challenge SummerSlam in terms of viewership or attention, but there's no doubt that NXT will deliver in every way imaginable.